What if the ancient Sumerian King List not only holds the stories of these divine leaders, but the 241,000-year account of events that are said to have resulted in the great flood of ancient Mesopotamian lore, while the great mystery known as the Sumerian problem remains, leaving exactly how this civilization seems to have instantly appeared fully formed at its very dawn, unknown. What isn't in question are the secrets it tells about why and how the great deluge came about. Because when you take in everything these kings achieved, according to this ancient clay record, it all points directly to their existence as the very spark that set off the sequence of events that caused this great reset. After all, according to the legendary Weld-Blundell Prism, it was these very antediluvian kings who brought Anunnaki knowledge down through the ages, ultimately succeeding so well in their appointed task to build human civilization to its peak, that it literally became the cause of its own demise. But to fully understand this whole concept, we must journey back to the beginning, carefully following these kings, their devoted sages, and the cities they built, experiencing how mankind adapted and shifted throughout a divine reign that lasted nearly 250,000 years. And this last is what really makes you stop and think, that mind-bending number. One cannot help taking more than a moment to let that fully sink in, if it is ever really possible to do so. It is a time span that is almost, if not impossible, for us to truly fathom. For human lifetimes as we know them are simply too fleeting, too brief in comparison, to ever truly comprehend a lifetime so long, so enduring. The only way to even begin to try is to ponder, what would it be like? Imagine walking in the divine shoes of a king who lived and ruled for tens of thousands of years, thousands upon thousands of lifetimes as we know them. Imagine being the spark that set off an entire civilization, an entire mesmerizing span of human history. To be handed such powerful knowledge by the gods, to carefully apply it in order to guide, to build, to flourish and maintain such a thing. That is an amazing thought to sink into. Then imagine 8 such lifetimes. It's simply mind-boggling. Yet, at the same time, it is comforting as well, because this very thought binds us to the past, all the while pulling us into its ancient mystery. And so, as we drift back into the shadows of this ancient Sumerian past, we sink into the very atmosphere of its deep place in time, to experience how it all came to be, and why it was said to have been wiped away, leaving only clay records to tell the tale. This is where our journey now begins, with those very clay remnants. Resting deep beneath the sun-baked soil, tens of thousands of delicate clay fragments, each one stamped with delicate wedge-shaped marks. Marks that look almost like the tracks of birds pressed into soft river mud, contain the earliest conscious thoughts of our species. But upon further inspection, scholars quickly realize that they do not read like the clumsy attempts of mere beginners. They read like the dedicated archives of a lost civilization that far exceeded its time. Detailed astronomical records, plant-based medical formulas, merchant records and legal contracts, and even poetic hymns to gods whose names had been forgotten for thousands of years. This discovery didn't happen with loud announcements. Not at first. It happened quietly in the shifting sands of southern Iraq, when 18th century excavators finally broke through those heavy desert mounds. They didn't find the primitive tools and crude shelters they had been expecting. They discovered a vast library of chambers, filled to the brim with meticulously organized archives, most of which have yet to be translated, and the ones that have leave a fascinating trail of clues. The ancient scribes who pressed these lines into wet clay seemed to skip the rehearsal phase entirely, stepping onto the grand stage of history already knowing every line of their script. Spectacular cities rose far and wide across the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, seemingly overnight in archaeological terms. They emerged with advanced urban blueprints, towering temples, sprawling irrigation networks, and a sophisticated mathematical system based on the number 60 that we still use to measure our hours to this day. History loves a slow climb, a gradual progression from stone to bronze, simple huts giving way to towering capitals, and basic pictures evolving into fully formed alphabets. Yet this lost civilization completely shattered every rule, appearing fully formed with a unique language that holds no known relatives on Earth, and mathematics that would form the foundations of all scientific endeavors yet to come. While researchers have spent over a century trying to explain how this could ever be possible, the ancient records themselves provide a far more spectacular answer. They tell us that humanity did not find this path alone. We were shown the way. To unlock this intricate puzzle, we have to look more closely at a unique artifact that has survived the rise and fall of countless empires. Unearthed from Golden Desert sands in 1922, a legendary four-sided clay pillar known as the Weld-Blundell Prism contains a breathtaking chronological map of early human expansion. Tiny wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform cover its smooth geometric surface, radiating the heavily grounding scent of dried earth, a scent that pulls us directly back through antiquity. These delicate impressions were pressed carefully into wet river mud by devoted scribes and arranged across the prism as a preserved sequence of cities, rulers, and reigns. Out of the hundreds of thousands of artifacts recovered from the sands over the last few centuries, few present a mystery as difficult to ignore. Because the record describes a massive epoch spanning over 241,000 years of divine rule, shared across only 8 legendary kings. Their impossibly immense lifespans stretched like long shadows across uncounted millenniums, creating a tranquil rhythm which operated far beyond any ordinary perception of passing time. If you are listening to this in the still quiet of the night, let us know where and when you are joining us from in the comments section. It is quietly comforting to realize that countless listeners, scattered across distant lands and different time zones, are all settling into the same quiet journey through the forgotten echoes of human history. And if you are enjoying this Sumerian history for sleep narrative, finding it helps you relax or even drift off, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps support our efforts to keep bringing you these ancient stories each week, and continue reaching others who are searching for the same calm place to relax and unwind. If you would like uninterrupted sleep and longer versions, those are available to you through the Legends of the Dawn membership. Now we turn our awareness back into the profound stillness of this primeval age, entering an era when this newly bestowed kingship remained in its absolute purest form, a perfect and uncorrupted gift of celestial order said to have been gracefully lowered from the heavens above. Following the lost roads of our earliest landscapes, we will trace a path across the 5 primeval cities that once anchored the flat horizons of our ancestors, long before the face of the earth was rewritten. But to fully comprehend the magnitude of their sudden rise, we must first closely examine the wisdom they wielded to organize their society. Because their breathtaking mastery over the fundamental laws of nature reveals a highly precise system woven seamlessly into their earliest traditions, right from the very beginning. Within every legend lies a sliver of truth, preparing to uncover the deepest and most guarded secrets of our distant past. And perhaps, by exploring the silent ruins of these ancient capitals, we can uncover the sacred knowledge they left behind, and the deep secrets of exactly how it was obtained. peering closely into the thickest shadows of these ancient remnants reveals an intelligence that simply defies all natural explanation. We find a primeval society operating upon a highly advanced mathematical framework known as a base 60 system. And from this framework sprung incredibly complex methods of calculation that were woven flawlessly into their earliest star maps, while simultaneously shaping their monumental architecture with absolute precision. This sophistication even seems to be encoded into the King's List itself, where ancient scholars recorded the impossibly long reigns of the first monarchs, using intervals of this exact same numerical structure. Their royal lifespans were carefully measured in units of 60, 600, and massive blocks of 3,600 years. This unique base 60 foundation still governs the hidden geometry of our universe. But to those early architects of civilization, it also represented a sacred language connecting their earthly realm directly to the turning stars themselves. They believed the entire cosmos was a beautifully balanced mechanism governed entirely by these flawless numerical ratios, values that were highly sacred to early mathematicians who sought to measure the turning of the heavens. Every stone placed in their towering temples reflected its pure geometry. Long before later empires ever dreamed of reaching such heights, these primeval stargazers had already mastered complex concepts. Research suggests they even possessed a clear understanding of square roots and Pythagorean principles long before the man himself was ever born. Their minds grasped the hidden harmony of our universe, using relatively intricate equations to measure their sprawling agricultural fields and calculating vast distances across their earthly domains. This breathtaking mathematical foundation allowed them to track the endless tapestry of the night sky with immense precision. They watched distant planets like Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter, just to name a few, mapping their slow rotation across the dark ether. Ancient astronomers predicted their celestial movements within a single degree of accuracy, safely anchoring their fragile mortal realm to a predictable heavenly rhythm. Observing the night sky with such unwavering focus would eventually transform the highest platforms of their most revered temples into massive astronomical observatories. The corners of these ancient ziggurats tended to align perfectly with the cardinal directions. Here, dedicated priests gazed into the dark canopy overhead, flickering with the lights of thousands of distant stars. They tracked the equinoxes and recorded the rise of golden sunlight across the horizon at precise moments of the year, eventually creating the world's first calendars. Their entire society operated as a beautifully synchronized clock, ticking in perfect time with the slowly drifting constellations. While standing upon their high temple terraces, they felt a profound connection to the glittering realm overhead, understanding that every single movement of the heavenly bodies carried a direct connection to their fertile river valleys below. Valleys ruled by a group of 8 kings, said to have been chosen by the Anunnaki Gods themselves, whose very longevity also seems to mirror their mathematical understanding. We are left to wonder if their impossible reigns were ever meant to be taken as literal lifespans, and perhaps we may never know for sure. Certain interpretations propose that these massive blocks of time were mistranslated over the ages, but others propose that they hold a much deeper symbolic meaning entirely, because interestingly enough, the lives of these incredible figures also seems to reflect a much broader revolution of the cosmic wheel, known as the precession of the equinoxes. This breathtaking astronomical cycle takes nearly 26,000 years to complete one single rotation across the heavens. By aligning their rulers with such immense celestial markers, the ancients wove their own fragile history into the unbreakable tapestry of time. And while their numerical brilliance would remain unmatched for ages to come, the words they used to describe their world carry an even deeper mystery. They spoke in a highly unique tongue known as Emigir, a noble language that was written down in an intricate system of wedge-shaped cuneiform symbols, allowing devoted scribes to permanently capture their wisdom and form a basis for human knowledge that endures even today. To hear this ancient dialect spoken aloud was to listen to the rhythmic humming of the earth itself. Its syllables flowed with a steady and peaceful cadence, one that mirrored the slow currents of the winding Euphrates River. Every spoken decree carried a heavily grounding vibration, washing over the people with a deep sense of comfort. Even under intense academic scrutiny, this forgotten dialect refuses to surrender the secrets of its true origins. It stands completely alone as a true language isolate, holding absolutely no known ancestry to any other culture on our planet. There are no primitive roots or gradual stages of evolution to explain its sudden arrival within the Mesopotamian valleys. A fully formed system of communication seemed to simply materialize, complete with intricate grammatical rules, alongside elegant cuneiform symbols. Using slender reeds, they translated a silent cosmic hum into tangible geometric marks that would outlast their own empires. The rich, dark mud of those southern riverbanks became a perfect vessel once cured, preserving this isolated memory for countless generations yet to come. The mystery deepens when we realize what their complex script was fully capable of expressing, the most complex concepts, no matter how profound or abstract. It possessed an elegant capacity to record legal codes, capture the emotional depth of prose and poetry, all while documenting natural medical remedies without any prior foundational stages to show how it all came to light. To find such a highly developed system so early in human history feels like stumbling through the wilderness, only to find a masterfully carved monument that was somehow finished long before the trees around it ever began to grow. And even so, we are left with a mere glimpse of this grand era, a small picture of those diligent caretakers sitting quietly within the shadowed halls of their earliest tablet houses. Sweet scents of burning cedar resin mingling with the cool and earthy aroma of fresh wet clay. Their steady hands moved with absolute certainty, capturing a magnificent time of rapid progress before it could be erased by the shifting winds of time. The soft, rhythmic scraping of their reed styluses provided a calming resonance that aligned perfectly with the steady beating of their own mortal hearts. They were the silent and devoted technicians of this universal resonance, ensuring that no fraction of their divine gift would ever be lost to the shadows. Each heavy clay tablet became a permanent anchor, securing a vast ocean of primeval wisdom to be studied for generations yet to come. This flawless integration of practical knowledge seems to confirm that they did not stumble blindly through a dark fog of ignorance. Instead, they were operating within a highly calibrated framework, working in perfect synchronization with the inherent design of the cosmos itself. It was a civilization completely out of time, pushing the absolute boundaries of what should have been evolutionarily possible during such an early stage of human development. Their sudden rise from the raw earth left behind a staggering trail of unanswered questions in their wake. Every meticulously carved wedge reveals a civilization operating at the absolute peak of an intellectual summit. The sheer scale of their understanding paints a mesmerizing portrait of a society deeply in tune with the elemental forces of nature, a society that insists that this vast tapestry of wisdom was never a mortal invention. Instead, they claimed the sacred authority was lowered gracefully from the stars, seeking a home where the first spark of human order could safely grow, a place where the deep roots of our collective story would permanently take hold. Far out, at the southernmost edge of the fertile marshlands, a quiet settlement carved into the damp soil waited patiently in the dark, and beneath the heavy shadows of a colossal tree, the very first capital of mankind was preparing to awaken. At the edge of the Persian Gulf rests one of those oldest cities known to mankind, a sacred place where it is said that the newly bestowed institution of kingship drifted downward like a gentle morning mist settling over the cool earth just before dawn. Here, the supreme deities had chosen a pristine settlement named Eridu to serve as the very first seat of this divine administration, placing the endless task of leadership upon the shoulders of a single human caretaker. A heavy blanket of tranquility draped softly over its flat green horizons to anchor wandering tribes to a solid foundation. Slowly sweeping currents of ancient waterways carried the promise of enlightenment hidden in their tall reeds. The sensation of wet river silt offered a deep resonance grounded in early civilized life, while the rhythmic lapping of dark water against the muddy banks washed away all lingering tension. Humble dwellings crafted softly from bundled grass rested peacefully along the edges of a pristine freshwater oasis. Its early inhabitants pressed wet river clay over their sturdy reed frames, allowing the warm southern sun to bake their quiet homes into solid sanctuaries. Slender vessels fashioned from thick reeds drifted lazily across the glassy water. Blanketing over this primeval domain was a colossal cedar known to antiquity as the Kishkenu tree. It emerged mysteriously from the sweet freshwater abyss of the Apsu to serve as a majestic bridge connecting the underground realms to the luminous heavens. Its sprawling branches broke past the celestial canopy to stretch out like massive protective arms. The shimmering lapis lazuli foliage sprouting from those branches cast a cool blue shadow. Smooth cedar bark hummed with a quiet resonance, while its dark appearance glimmered in small flecks of shiny gold pyrite. The air around it thrummed with a silent chorus vibrating to the rhythm of a magical age. This massive wooden pillar created a refreshingly shaded sanctuary for newly crowned shepherds. Its dense canopy shielded early humanity from the blinding glare of an intense southern sun. Looking beneath this mesmerizing canopy reveals the impossible timeline characterizing those first antediluvian rulers. Those vast eras were meticulously measured using massive blocks of 3,600 years, known as Sars. First among them was a devoted monarch named Allulim. His flawless wisdom reigned over Eridu for 28,800 unwavering years, or exactly 8 Sars. During this breathtaking span of time, he would establish a methodical rhythm for early civilization, while laying the groundwork for a highly productive society ahead. This original sovereign acted as a gentle shepherd leading his mortal flock across lush wetlands. Following his monumental Erra came the reign of Alalgar. He guided the flourishing settlement for 36,000 peaceful years, 10 Sars, overseeing an earthly garden that would blossom into a physical reflection of the highly ordered starry sky. Under such immense oversight, the very fabric of time seemed to stretch into infinity. Life in Eridu unfolded with the deliberate grace of a drifting river, where each decade was but a single heartbeat within the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. Those passing centuries felt like a continuous golden afternoon that promised never to fade into night. Earthly time was effectively stretched to match the sprawling infinite canvas of the star-speckled heavens. They sought to clearly demonstrate how the pristine reign over Eridu lasted throughout entire turns of this invisible cosmic wheel. Every passing century spent resting beneath the world tree was merely a fleeting second in a grander celestial cycle. Only a civilization observing countless uninterrupted generations could possibly perceive such a massive progression. This cosmic accounting provided them with a deeply ingrained sense of purpose, because the ancient scholars firmly believed that maintaining this symmetry would ensure endless prosperity for their growing delta. But even the wisest monarch could not translate the complex language of distant stars on his own. They would require hidden knowledge to properly institute laws for such a rapidly developing civilization. So where did these first shepherds obtain that brilliant insight required to expand so quickly across the southern marshlands? Ancient clay tablets claim they did not simply arrive with every ounce of information they needed. Instead, they whisper of far more mysterious forces rising from the farthest depths of their southern seas, where a vast collection of celestial knowledge was being carefully curated within the very ocean itself. Mankind was still essentially in its infancy, waiting for a spark of true civilization. While the earliest human populations slumbered peacefully under the expansive branches of the Kishkamu tree, a sweet, watery abyss was quietly preparing to open its gates. Within that dark, silent domain of an ancient god, the currents of destiny were swirling in anticipation. This tranquil sea held the blueprints necessary to uphold entire empires. Absolute universal peace rested securely within the capable hands of supreme creators, awaiting the glorious arrival of their next great teachers. The deepest freshwater aquifers were known as the Apsu, where a wise water deity named Enki watched over his sleeping world. He was one of the highest gods in the primary Anunnaki assembly. Widely revered as the lord of freshwater and intellect, possessing a supreme mastery of esoteric magic, he had conquered primordial entities who reigned long before him, in an effort to preserve the very source of wisdom that had allowed all life to take root on earth. A wisdom that he would later use in the greatest acts of creation in Sumerian mythology. For it was this very god that was said to have fashioned the first mortal men and women of the human species, molding our bodies from the finest clay sediments mixed with the blood of a sacrificed deity, a divine spark which they believe still resides at the very core of our DNA. And his work was not done. Enki now recognized that these first generations lacked the deeper understanding required to build a truly advanced civilization. At least, not yet. So to bridge this immense gap, a brilliant plan was formed. Rather than leaving them to face the slow trials of evolution, this supreme deity deliberately designed an entirely new species, a dedicated group of semi-divine counselors who would be sent to teach mankind and to guide their progress, bringing the sacred arts of order directly to the first settlement. These extraordinary aquatic guides would come to be remembered throughout history as the Seven Sages, or the Apkallu. The Uruk list of kings and sages even reveals that each divine teacher was carefully paired with one specific antediluvian king, serving as their closest and most trusted advisors. Far below the terrestrial surface, these wise entities were molded from pure esoteric magic and the energies of the ether itself. Their souls were filled with an endless patience needed to educate mortal minds. A deep aquatic resonance hummed softly as their physical forms solidified in dark waters. They waited securely within luminous turquoise halls for a perfect moment to ascend. The subterranean oceans provided a flawless sanctuary for their tangible manifestation and eventual awakening. Soon they would carry this brilliant light of civilization up to the sun-kissed realms above. That morning was a tranquil one, Thick and heavy mists rolled slowly across quiet marshlands, while the calm, glassy surface of the southern sea parted gracefully, just as dawn began to break over the horizon. From those quiet depths emerged 7 otherworldly emissaries. Foremost among this breathtaking arrival was a legendary figure known to early scribes as Adapa. He stepped softly onto the slick river mud with a slow precision, bringing the balanced essence of the deep with him, personifying it in every careful movement. They all wore heavy shimmering cloaks fashioned from the skins of the sacred giant Pūrādu fish. Thousands of droplets of ocean water gleamed brightly upon their strange scaled garments, catching the pale light of the early sunrise and making their silver attire sparkle like scattered stones. Such unusual aquatic garments served as a highly comforting visual reminder for the awaking mortals. It signaled that this profound wisdom bubbled up directly from the sunken halls of the protective water god who presided over their ancient city. These mysterious figures were a gift sent from the deep. Their very presence emitted a deeply soothing resonance, calming even the slightest uncertainty. Primitive caretakers gathered near the edge of the riverbanks to observe this arrival in complete silence, feeling an overwhelming sense of safety washing over their tired bodies. The untamed wilderness suddenly felt remarkably manageable under the watchful gaze of these gentle guides. Together with their sovereign kings, their primary mission was to deliver the flawless architecture of universal order. This ultimate gift of supreme reasoning had its own name. It was known throughout antiquity as the Holy May. These invisible parameters held every single bit of information needed to produce and maintain a flourishing, complex civilization. They contained the intricate instructions for understanding advanced mathematics, the precession of the equinoxes, the rule of law to keep an orderly society, and even the deepest secrets of celestial magic. Early populations would come to revere this profound knowledge as the absolute pillar of their society. The melodic voices of these aquatic teachers carried the resonance of the rolling ocean tides. Listening to their sacred instructions brought an immense clarity to the human mind, as they began to translate those crucial rules into simple and easily manageable tasks. By sharing this secret cosmic language, they permanently altered our destiny. Early humans absorbed this brilliant logic without any need for an exhausting trial, flourishing rapidly. A beautiful alignment formed perfectly between the mortal and heavenly realms. Those magnificent sages ensured that every royal decree resonated with pure celestial intent. Mankind was finally equipped with the mental tools required to build sprawling earthen empires. Mortal hands were shown how to carefully measure their agriculture fields and dig deep geometric trenches to usher in freshwater currents. They learned to tame wildly overgrown riverbanks to prevent disastrous floods from washing away their progress. A steady hum of early industry slowly began to replace the deafening silence of the primordial era. This divine transfer of celestial intellect laid a solid foundation for all future human prosperity. A pristine natural landscape was steadily organized into predictable columns of thriving crops and channeled waters. Ancient scribes captured a breathtaking memory of these fish-cloaked figures walking peacefully among early settlements, where the isolated language of cuneiform became a permanent vessel for their teachings. Through this meticulous accounting, an unruly environment was quickly tamed. The sages revealed how to trace the slow shifting of distant constellations across the celestial tapestry. This stellar awareness allowed earthly kings to synchronize their planting seasons with the turning cycles of planetary spheres. An intricate framework of societal codes was formally introduced to govern growing communities. Emotional impulses were firmly restrained by clear boundaries of acceptable behavior. A peaceful sanctuary of compassion flourished beautifully under this strict structural administration. Precise measurements from the holy May dictated everything from the high offices of leadership down to simple arts and crafts. Basket weavers and temple builders, priests and farmers alike, relied entirely upon these sacred ratios to perfect their daily work. Every conceivable action was carefully aligned with the grand cosmic design. Divine wisdom took root deeply within the damp soil of these southern marshlands, where primitive survival instincts were permanently replaced by a burning desire to create peaceful order and to build a lasting legacy. The vast plains were destined to become a flawlessly managed agricultural and urban paradise. Heavy shadows of ignorance melted away beneath the radiant glow of celestial instruction. Our ancestors were completely ready to embrace the dawn of domestic tranquility. The teachings of the seven sages had brought a gentle transition to the path of progress for all humanity. Wandering tribes were gradually elevated from chaotic foragers into a highly organized society resting securely upon the riverbanks. Daily life slowly began to find its rhythm across the flat green expanses of Eridu. This sprawling settlement surged beautifully, with naturally woven reed houses secured firmly by heavy clay nails, keeping a constant grounding connection to the earth beneath them. Early inhabitants pressed wet mud over heavy frames, allowing the warm southern sun to harden and cure their homes into sturdy structures. Slender vessels fashioned from thick bundles of reeds drifted lazily across glassy lagoons, carrying silent fishermen hunting for a good day's catch. They perfectly mirrored the unhurried grace of a peaceful dawn breaking over the calm southern gulf. Caretakers fashioned thick mats to easily traverse soft marshy ground without sinking into it. The sharp ringing of sickles baked from a mixture of hard clay and fine quartz sand called out across the land, harvesting golden crops while signaling their brilliant triumph over the wilderness. Skilled artisans learned to shape wet river mud into beautiful pottery, spinning upon newly invented wooden wheels. They fired these delicate clay vessels in hot kilns to securely store precious oils and fresh drinking water. Woven baskets of river reeds carried bountiful harvests of ripe dates gathered from shaded groves. The meticulous blueprints provided by their aquatic teachers dictated exactly how to channel sweet freshwater currents. Deeper geometric trenches were carefully carved to guide nourishing moisture directly into their parched agricultural fields, and from it bountiful harvests of golden grain sprouted vigorously from the dark mud. Early farmers coaxed a once uncultivated landscape to yield massive quantities of nourishing barley and wheat. They utilized the steady flow of river water to maintain perfectly nourished fields beneath the scorching southern heat. This flawless management of natural resources provided a continuous surplus of food, sustaining their rapidly growing civilization. That very first dedication to this divine instruction from the gods manifested as a beautifully primitive one-room chapel. In its earliest days, it rested quietly upon a clean dune of white sand, surrounded completely by whispering marshlands. Grateful inhabitants brought modest offerings of fresh fish from the sea to honor unseen creators. It was a humble structure in the beginning, fashioned entirely from the natural materials of the quiet marshes which surrounded it. Slender reeds were bundled tightly together to form resilient walls that whispered gently in the passing breeze. These simple gifts acknowledged the immense debt owed directly to the watery domain of Enki. Pious followers would place them softly upon an earthen altar, where they represented a deeply ingrained bond between the mortal and heavenly realms of the Anunnaki. A deep spiritual devotion took root within the hearts of those ancient peoples, a spiritual devotion that was constantly echoed in the very presence of the fish-cloaked counselors, who continued to walk peacefully among resting laborers to ensure their instructions were perfectly executed. As human understanding of those sacred blueprints expanded over countless years, their architecture grew increasingly ambitious. They sought to honor flawless geometry of the holy May through towering physical expressions of their faith. Steady hands moved with absolute certainty to raise the scale of their sacred capital. Layer upon layer were built continuously upon one another across 18 different phases of construction over thousands of years, to honor the original foundation of that one-room sanctuary by expanding directly upon it. Each new generation respectfully buried an older shrine deep within the earth, using the memories of their ancestors to support heavier clay walls rising higher and higher into the sky. They created a massive layered plateau of sun-dried mud bricks, towering proudly over endless flat wetlands. The heavily grounding scent of dried earth mingled perfectly with the sweet aromas of fresh river silt. The interior chambers of this artificial mountain were packed tightly with pure, clean sand brought from the surrounding desert. This ingenious architectural design allowed the massive structure to remain perfectly stable despite the shifting river mud below its foundations. Humanity even applied their advanced geometric wisdom to securely crown these massive foundations. This towering marvel of primeval engineering rose bravely from the surrounding seas of waving green reeds and sparkling waters, daring to touch the sky. The sheer scale of this undertaking required an extraordinary level of coordinated human effort. Thousands of dedicated builders moved in perfect harmony like a well-calibrated team. They hauled endless baskets of raw river clay under the watchful gazes of their early shepherd kings. Solid brickwork was joined seamlessly using thick applications of fragrant bitumen. Laborers traveled far to collect bubbling pitch to boil into a perfect waterproof mortar for their structures. The rich and earthy aroma of melting tar became a permanent fixture in the atmosphere. Imposing facades featured rebaited buttresses that were beautifully terraced with hanging trees and lush plants. A pristinely whitewashed shrine rested peacefully at the very summit. Its blindingly bright walls caught those very first rays of morning sunlight breaking over the eastern horizon. Ancient builders carefully plastered these outer walls with a smooth layer of bright white gypsum, a protective plaster-like coating which deflected the harsh glare of sunlight while giving the towering monument an ethereal glowing presence. It stood as a radiant manifestation of the divine order brought down from the starry skies, and an enduring monument to the wisdom of all creation bubbling up from the Apsu below. Such a soaring earthly sanctuary was known to devoted ancient scribes as the Ionir, or I-Abzu. Its majestic presence offered a clean and purified resting place for any deities visiting the mortal realm. This glowing beacon of hope could be seen from countless miles away, a continuous stream of devoted caretakers to deliver precious offerings. They carried intricately woven baskets, overflowing with the absolute finest yields of their flourishing agricultural gardens. The heavy smoke of burning cedar resin drifted continuously from high temple platforms, merging with the clouds as they passed by. The sweet fragrance of roasted barley mingled with a salt-tinged breeze blowing in from the nearby gulf. Chanting priests poured fine oils over smooth stone altars to honor the nurturing generosity of their water god. These slow, deliberate rituals maintained a vital flow of energy, keeping the terrestrial planes securely in alignment with divine will. Standing as a flawless archetype for all future ziggurats, it holds the longest record of repeated reconstruction across Mesopotamian history. The staggering scale of their ambition echoed loudly through countless centuries yet to come. Many scholars even agree it could have served as the legendary inspiration for the infamous Tower of Babel, attempting to build a stairway directly into the distant stars. Here, the patient instructions of the Apkallu had culminated in an earthly monument defying all limits of mortal frailty. Through their perseverance and dedication, those ancient inhabitants of Eridu successfully wove celestial magic into the very fabric of their city. The entire settlement operated in perfect synchronization with the vast cosmic balance governed by the holy May. Sprawling domestic neighborhoods expanded outward from the protective shadow of this colossal stage tower, where the warm amber glow of small hearth fires illuminated winding dirt avenues. As dusk slowly approached, mankind had finally found a permanent sanctuary, completely insulated against the disorganized wilderness beyond their protective walls. Mothers sang new magical words to lull their children to sleep with soothing melodies. Within the quiet sanctuary of their dreams, these mortal workers processed the vast architecture of their newly inherited reality, while the heavy and protective shadows of the world tree blanketed them in a refreshing embrace. The softly paced breathing of the entire city echoed the gentle lapping of dark water against muddy banks. A comforting silence blanketed those early Mesopotamian valleys as the golden sun finished its slow descent. Mothers and children, farmers and merchants all settled into the quiet of the night, while early stargazers looked up into the shimmering expanse overhead, tracing the drifting constellations across the dark canopy. But the endless turning of the calendar ensures that no golden age can remain in place forever. Change comes as naturally as the relentlessly flowing waters of the great Euphrates, whether we want it to or not. And though it brings uncertainty, it is also sometimes necessary to usher in a brighter dawn. When one door closes, we open another. And just like that mighty river, though it may ebb or change its course, the currents of progress never ceases its flow. Those pristine waters of Eridu began to experience a slow environmental shift as the millennia drifted past, a shift which marked a new era in this grand antediluvian chronicle. Natural silting of the extreme southern marshes choked the winding rivers, starving the surrounding wetlands of their vital moisture. Shifting ancient watercourses altered their predictable paths, forcing the lush green reeds to wither away under an intense southern sun. A severe lack of sweet water caused the beautiful delta to dry and harden into arid mudflats. This glorious aquatic sanctuary was slowly reclaimed by the sweeping dust of an encroaching desert. The invisible weight of divine kingship was quietly preparing to lift from these tranquil southern swamps, traveling beyond their current horizons to secure firmer ground. To sustain their growing flocks and find a new home, a visionary sovereign named King Enlil assumed the heavy mantle of leadership. He gently guided the wandering population away from the first capital city, following the winding rivers to the north. They migrated slowly across sweeping open plains in search of stable grassy pastures. This sprawling new terrain possessed a vastly different atmosphere from the wet aquatic reeds of their southern homelands. The landscape transitioned beautifully into wide open spaces as they finally settled upon the second primeval city, known natively as Bad-Tibira. Ancient scribes affectionately translated this name to the magnificent fortress of the smiths. Its wide grassy plains were perfectly ideal for grazing large flocks of sheep and cattle. The far more solid earth beneath their feet held heavy metallic ores needed for a glorious new dawn of early human industry. Wandering tribes settled peacefully into a bustling hub, that would forever change the trajectory of their civilization. The warm air grew thick with a sharp, earthy scent of melting copper and roasting hot fires. The hypnotic, repetitive ringing of stone hammers striking hot metal echoed continuously across the wide green hills. The steady heartbeat of this primeval settlement was forged deep within the glowing embers of early earthen kilns. Thick plumes of white smoke rose high into the pale morning sky, signaling the birth of a brand new era. Raw materials of the earth were gathered into woven baskets to be brought before blazing mud-brick hearths, while strong hands worked tirelessly to extract the hidden magic resting deep within. This relentless striking of heavy stone tools created a mesmerizing symphony of early production. It completely replaced the soft rustling of river reeds that had so thoroughly defined their former home. Bad-Tibira emerged proudly from the land as a shining monument to the unbreakable spirit of human adaptation. King Enlil ruled this booming metallic fortress for a staggering 46,800 years. All the while his impossibly long reign was closely guided by his aquatic sage. This brilliant counselor was known as Ammisaduqa, a name which meant one who is allotted a good fate. Together they oversaw the slow, methodical discovery of the sciences of metallurgy, and Ammisaduqa taught early smiths how to harness the fierce heat of a fire to purify the darkest ores. Here the chaotic elements of nature were brought into perfect submission through a careful application of divine geometry. Raw earthly ores were melted down to be turned into the first glowing copper tools and permanent instruments of civilization. The malleable clay of the past was slowly replaced by the sharp and durable edge of polished metal. Mortal hands learned to shape heavy earthen materials into beautiful shining vessels that caught the golden light of the sun. Glowing hot kilns illuminated the tired faces of early craftsmen as they mastered this new divine art, learning to carefully pour molten liquid into hardened molds. The burdens of agricultural labor were soon lightened by the unyielding strength and versatility of these newly fashioned instruments. Every heavy copper blade and sturdy metal fastener represented a profound triumph of divine order and brought renewed purpose to the expanding pastoral community. When the vast era of this ruler finally came to a close, the heavy mantle of kingship passed seamlessly onward. The fourth sovereign, named King Enlil, inherited a thriving metropolis, his reign lasting for an immense 64,800 years by some accounts. Beside him stood Enlil, a wise member of the Apkallu, whose hallowed duty was to guarantee the continuous flow of divine instruction. His ancient title signified one who was born in a house, an association that perfectly reflected the deepening roots of civilized life spreading around them. The sprawling tents and nomadic camps of early humanity were permanently replaced by sturdy baked mud homes resting securely in the warm glow of copper forges. Baked clay walls provided a cool and fragrant refuge from the intense midday heat of the open plains. Within these quiet domestic spaces, early humans found an undeniable connection to peaceful rhythms of the earth. City streets were meticulously planned to allow cool evening winds to sweep freely through bustling neighborhoods, aligned with the cardinal directions. High mud brick walls cast long protective shadows over quiet courtyards where families gathered to rest. A deep sense of community and shared purpose blossomed within the secure boundaries of this magnificent urban sanctuary. Following this long era of progress, a final ruler of this industrial epoch took the throne. This gentle monarch was known widely as Dumuzi the Shepherd. For 36,000 years he guided his bustling city with a calm and unwavering devotion. He brought a soothing pastoral harmony to the city, tending to his vast wandering flocks and his devoted people with equal care. This compassionate ruler was assisted by a mysterious sage known as Enlil, widely recognized as a conjurer of the city of Eridu. He carried the most sacred purifying incantations of the deep sea to safely ward away unseen dangers, bridging the wide gap between two great primeval cities. Through him, the deep aquatic magic of the southern delta was brought directly into the dry metallic heat of Bad-Tibira. Meanwhile, the sturdy mud brick walls provided a protective embrace around a sleeping population, keeping an expansive, untamed wilderness safely at bay. Peace settled over the majestic fortress of the smiths as a golden sun drifted lower in the sky. The synchronized movements of metalworkers slowed to a gentle halt as long shadows stretched across the grass. An entire civilization breathed together in absolute harmony beneath the watchful eyes of the Anunnaki Gods. The loud ringing of early copper forges began to slowly fade into dusk, their intense radiating heat gently softening into a warm bed of glowing embers. Twilight wrapped the bustling metropolis in a protective embrace, as the steady low hum of ancient industry gave way to the nightly respite of a world that suddenly seems to stand still. Weary craftsmen set aside their heavy stone hammers, settling down to enjoy a quiet evening. Ancient caretakers stepped softly through darkening fields, gathering their quiet flocks from green pastures. As wandering sheep settled down into soft river grass, both man and beast rested comfortably in the flawless perfection of this early world. Cool, fragrant winds swept down from distant mountains, carrying the sweet scent of blooming night flowers, reflecting the harmony which blanketed the magnificent fortress, leaving its inhabitants to slumber securely beneath the twinkling of distant starlight. They lived their simple lives in flawless synchronization with the endless turning of those bright celestial spheres. Little did they know at the time that the invisible tide of divine kingship would continue to shift its course. It was destined to travel even further northward into the blinding light of a glorious sun god, where a sprawling network of massive cities would eventually rise from the horizon. That journey would soon awaken a completely new era of human ambition. But for now, a deeply comforting atmosphere settled softly over the sprawling plains of Mesopotamia, bringing a peaceful close to this early pastoral age. The brilliant colors of daytime slowly melted into the soft watercolors of twilight, leaving the open sky to be guided by the soothing presence of the rising moon. Tall earthen temples gently cooled under the stars shining overhead, casting long protective shadows over the sleeping valleys. It was a serene environment of absolute comfort, wrapping the weary population in a secure and tranquil embrace. A soft wind swept gracefully across the darkening delta, whispering through dense reed beds that grew thickly along distant banks of the Euphrates River. Those swaying marshlands rustled together in perfect harmony, forming a natural hypnotic lullaby that washed over the landscape. Every tired laborer and wandering shepherd found a beautiful sanctuary of peace within this quiet resonance, allowing every thought to gently dissolve into the deep stillness of a restorative slumber. Drifting backward through these long shadows of antiquity reveals that every mortal soul is an active thread, woven seamlessly into this mysterious tale. Our shared history unfolds quietly throughout the deepest layers of our forgotten past, connecting our dreams to those of the ancients. Together we rest, tethered to an unbroken river of memory that carries our souls into a state of suspended tranquility. Those very same stars that once watched over the silent courts of the first two primeval cities continue their eternal watch to this very night, their shimmering light offering a reassuring permanence to all, guiding us toward an endless cosmic horizon. Deep within quiet courtyards of early tablet houses, slender reed styluses have finally been laid down to rest in dark archives. Countless damp clay tablets are left to slowly cure in the stillness of midnight, securely holding the profound wisdom of our primeval world. These fragile earthen records sleep soundly beneath a canopy of starlight, keeping their immense secrets safe from the shifting winds of history. A heavily fragrant scent of melting cedar resin mingles effortlessly with sweet aromas of fresh river silt, hanging motionless in the calm evening air. This intoxicating earthly perfume anchors our wandering spirit to a timeless sanctuary of rest, offering a deeply grounding resonance that soothes every exhausted muscle. The rhythmic beating of every sleeping metropolis falls into flawless alignment with the gentle pulses of nature, breathing together as one unified entity. As our consciousness dissolves completely into this eternal current, it brings a floating sense of universal harmony. Drift effortlessly through this comforting dreamscape, cradled securely by the soft whispers of our primeval past. Meanwhile, the sweet waters of our ancient freshwater abyss continue to flow silently beneath densely packed soil, nourishing the roots of civilization while earthly realms slumber. Its endless depths reflect the undisturbed night sky, blending earthly magic with the quiet turning of our universe. Here, the fragile boundaries of the physical realm simply melt away, leaving only a serene comfort to guide us. This deeply ingrained cosmic resonance offers unwavering assurance that the delicate balance of life is always perfectly maintained. The slow breathing of thousands of souls becomes a timeless testament to the enduring grace of a world at absolute peace, where a protective magic watches over all living things. Stillness blankets those magnificent early cities, carrying the gentle promise of a bright and glorious dawn yet to come. Within the ancient heart of the cradle of civilization, we float endlessly upon a peaceful tide of human memory, as this grand epoch quietly continues its course in the eternal currents of time. As the final echoes of these early advancements melt completely into the deepening twilight, a remarkable transition slowly sweeps across the ancient landscape. The vibrant energy of civilization naturally softens to allow the wide horizons of the past to settle into a profound state of grace. For uncounted generations, we have watched humanity rise, learn, and adapt, molding the raw elements of nature and mastering the art of early society to secure their place beneath the heavens. But the true magnitude of this primeval era cannot be fully measured by the construction of fortresses or the forging of metal alone. There is a deeper, far quieter current that runs beneath the surface of this grand chronicle. A steady rhythm that calls for a momentary pause, allowing the collective spirit of mankind to realign with the underlying frequencies of the universe. We leave behind the bustling avenues of early progress, stepping softly away from the heat of the day to let our wandering thoughts drift toward vastly different atmospheres. The vivid colors of worldly ambition begin to dissolve, yielding their vibrant energy to the quiet, protective majesty of an undisturbed night. As the physical world surrenders to sleep, the monuments of this golden age remain standing in the dark, silent and enduring testaments to an intelligence that operated in perfect harmony with the cosmos. It is here, in the quiet spaces between the stars and the clay, that the true blueprint of human civilization becomes clear. The quiet shadows of the evening hold a deeper question that is waiting to challenge our common understanding of history. A magnificent puzzle rests silently beneath the earth, inviting the mind to look closer at the earliest records of our survival. The grand legacy of the ancient kingdoms points toward an enduring secret that is preserved forever in the remnants of our past, leading us to ask, what if the definitive answer to the Sumerian problem has been hiding in plain sight, etched into a single clay artifact for thousands of years? A legendary clay record known as the Weld-Blundell Prism. Here, within the ancient wedge-shaped symbols of the Sumerian King List, we discover a mystery as old as time, one that completely challenges everything we thought we knew about our origins. It describes an incredibly advanced civilization that swelled into a massive metropolis of towering monuments, reaching toward the very pillars of the heavens. A civilization guided by 8 legendary kings who were said to have descended, quite literally, from the realm of the gods. But how could such a glorious empire simply disappear, leaving only scattered traces of ruined foundations and these mysterious clay artifacts in its wake? And how did they rise to such heights so quickly? This chronicle whispers of a long-forgotten age that stood beautifully aligned under the protective vigil of the stars. Their magnificent society flourished across the primeval world for nearly 250,000 years, long before our conventional standards of history ever began. Think about that for a moment. An unbroken line of cosmic order spanning thousands of generations, across only 8 sovereign rulers, 241,000 years of continuous expansion that are now lost to the distant shadows of the past. Following the winding paths of these primeval records reveals a small glimpse into the final moments of this golden age. It was a tremendously long epoch that started long before those first great ziggurats dared to touch the pale blue sky. Here we will explore the majestic reign of the last antediluvian kings to govern this ancient empire, before the Great Reset. Under the careful guidance of these dedicated rulers and the patient teachings of the 7 sages, mankind had inherited a heightened intelligence from the Anunnaki Gods. This magnificent wisdom would lead early societies to grow to such spectacular heights that they pushed past absolute farthest limits of our physical realm. Their unyielding ambition strained the delicate boundaries between heaven and earth, building a towering civilization that refused to remain in the shadows. It may be a tale of pure brilliance, but it is one that carries a heavy cost that would soon demand balance. Countless generations of rapid architectural progress would cause the collective voice of humanity to rise into our upper atmosphere, ultimately challenging the peaceful serenity of celestial order itself. The deafening roar of primeval industry would pierce through the clouds, setting the stage for a spectacular convergence of catastrophic forces. And from this overwhelming clamor would rise a famous hero of ancient legends, he who preserved the spark of life in his palms, while the world around him fell to darkness. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because this is no mere dry account of the historical record. It is a tale that forces us to look at what happens when human achievement begins to rival the power of the gods themselves. We will witness a sacred act of preservation under the cover of secrecy, as devoted scholars raced against time to safely hide the flawless instructions of the Holy May, ensuring the mysterious transformation of a single mortal prince into an eternal guardian of a long-lost age. That fragile memory of human progress was carefully sealed away from the destructive waters, waiting patiently for a new dawn. As our consciousness drifts into the second half of this primeval chronicle, the ultimate peak of early human innovation is brought to light, blossoming within some of those oldest cities known to mankind. Ancient builders labored together under a darkening sky, understanding that their sprawling courts and high temples were merely temporary vessels, for a much older truth. They worked with a quiet determination to ensure that the delicate spark of their culture would outlast the shifting tides of time. It is a powerful reminder of our resilience, a testament to the enduring flame that survives even in the darkest of storms. Drift backward into fragrant mists of early antiquity, long before the clouds began to gather, where our thoughts surrender to the slow and hypnotic rotation of celestial spheres sinking peacefully into the horizon of a forgotten epoch, one that scholars are still trying to comprehend to this day. The rhythmic breathing of thousands of dreamers blends seamlessly with the gentle rotation of the stars overhead, carrying our consciousness away to a time when mortal ambition and cosmic design were beautifully intertwined. As we pause to listen to the silent whispers of the past, this ancient landscape begins to materialize within the safety of our imagination, where we can feel the gentle breeze blowing across the Mesopotamian plains, carrying the soft scent of river reeds and damp earth, of wheat grains, palm leaves, and rich soil. It must have been incredible to witness how quickly this ancient Sumerian civilization had grown. The advancements they had made in the first primeval cities was incredible enough to begin with, especially given the relatively short period in which they were achieved. They spread rapidly from the muddy wetlands of their earliest capital in Eridu, where they had mastered the art of early society and learned complex celestial mathematics, laying a pristine foundation for all future generations yet to come. From the calm waters of the southern seas, their endless curiosity carried them across the rolling agricultural fields of Bad-Tibira, where they unlocked the secrets of early metallurgy within the glowing embers of heavy copper forges. Brilliant fires burned throughout the long days and quiet evenings, as skilled craftsmen shaped hardened tools from the raw elements of the earth. But once they had conquered the dense ores of the sweeping plains, these ambitious caretakers would inevitably shift their wandering gaze to seek new horizons. Their steady footsteps pressed forward into the next great chapter of human progress, where the deep shadows of the past hold the eternal secrets of our future. A timeless rhythm moves seamlessly ahead, ready to uncover the magnificent heights that awaited them. If you are listening to this in the still quiet of the night, let us know where and when you are joining us from in the comment section. It is quietly comforting to realize that countless listeners, scattered across distant lands and different time zones, are all settling into the same quiet journey through the forgotten echoes of human history. And if you are enjoying this Sumerian history for sleep narrative, finding it helps you relax, or even drift off, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps support our efforts to keep bringing you these ancient stories each week and continue reaching others who are searching for the same calm place to relax and unwind. If you would like uninterrupted sleep and longer versions, those are available to you through the Legends of the Dawn membership. Now we return to a time when ambitious ancients sought a new territory to claim as their own, where they would build a new civilization in yet another new land. Following the winding watercourses away from open pastures would lead them into a vastly different atmosphere. Blistering heat from the relentless southern sun suddenly gives way to a refreshingly cool oasis of sprawling date palm orchards and lush foliage, providing a deeply refreshing contrast to the dry, dusty winds sweeping across neighboring lands. Wandering laborers sought refuge beneath a massive canopy of broad green leaves which blocked out the harsh midday light. The towering trunks of ancient palm trees formed living columns stretching high above damp river soil. Cultivated trees filled the air, thickening it with the sweet fragrance of ripening fruit drifting lazily through the dense foliage to soothe exhausted travelers. Here, within this shaded paradise, rested a magnificent capital, the third primeval city of the antediluvian era, known to ancient scribes as Larak. Clay tablets reveal that the supreme deities of the Anunnaki pantheon bestowed this flourishing metropolis directly to a mystical guardian, a divine being named Pabilsag. He served as the divine lord of the wild forests, embodying its deep roots and sturdy timber. His mythological influence deeply inspired the migrating population to harness nature in harmony rather than conquer it. Under his soothing celestial guidance, these early inhabitants of Larak quickly tamed the city's unpredictably shifting riverbanks, transforming overgrown regions of the delta into beautifully cultivated groves bursting with organic life. Some texts, like the Eridu Genesis, even claim that the locations, foundations, and structural blueprints of each of the 5 primeval cities had already been laid out by the gods themselves the moment the first king had been sent. Their mortal creations then worked tirelessly to see their plans to fruition, constructing massive buildings and canals, and trapping sweet river currents before they could escape back into the bedrock below or evaporate into thin air. Nourishing moisture was systematically directed along geometric pathways to feed the thirsty roots beneath the earth. Bubbling channels of fresh water created a constant hypnotic melody flowing throughout the quiet city streets. A perfectly balanced ecosystem thrived within those protective borders under the watch of incredibly patient leadership and dedicated caretakers spanning thousands of uninterrupted generations. To oversee this massive horticultural undertaking, a new shepherd was brought to his earthen throne. Ancient texts identify this majestic king as Enlil. He ruled over Larak with unwavering devotion for a staggering 28,800 years. A new wise aquatic sage emerged from the depths of the abyss to serve as his trusted counselor. A brilliant member of the fish-cloaked Apkallu, known widely as Enmebeluga. Together they continued to translate the complex wisdom of the Holy May. Enmebeluga taught his people highly advanced methods of agricultural mathematics and complex geometry to elevate their blooming society even further. Their minds eagerly absorbed the intricate formulas. Mortal hands learned precise seasonal routines required for pruning thick reed beds, utilizing the plant fibers for everything from mats and baskets to boats and structural reinforcement. Meanwhile, their careful trimming allowed golden sunlight to reach much smaller plants growing close to the damp forest floors. Every calculated action was specifically designed to maximize the bountiful harvest of heavy dates and cultivated orchards. Their semi-divine sage introduced strict systems to properly measure the overflowing abundance of their crops. He introduced the measurement of half-bushel baskets to standardize food distribution across a rapidly expanding population. This brilliant concept marked the birth of true economic order and widespread prosperity. Families no longer struggled against the harsh weather and unpredictable cycles of the wilderness. Granaries swelled with enormous surpluses of nourishing food, ensuring absolute stability during cooler seasons. Divine arithmetic had been brought down from the heavens to organize their muddy terrain. Larak stood proudly as a stunning shaded oasis, an incredibly efficient system of agrarian wealth, humming with a silent purpose. Countless laborers moved in beautiful synchronization through those dim, fragrant pathways spanning across their city. Heavy dates were methodically plucked from high branches using tall wooden ladders. Overflowing baskets were carried swiftly toward cool mud brick storehouses, and quiet granaries were filled with wheat and barley, waiting nearby. Every citizen played a vital role in maintaining this incredibly well-balanced ancient civilization. Decades melted seamlessly into centuries as King Enlil maintained his flawless cosmic rhythm. His prolonged existence proved that mortal flesh could endure immense epochs under divine protection, anchoring his fragile world to a strong tether of celestial magic provided by his wise sage. Such breathtaking prosperity eventually transformed this once humble settlement into a breathtaking epicenter of growth. Lush foliage draped softly over baked clay walls, offering refreshing comfort to visiting merchants. Trade routes expanded continuously outward, connecting their green haven to distant regions across the rolling plains of early Mesopotamia. The whispering of palm fronds composed a natural lullaby, echoing continuously throughout dense orchards. It was a serene melody capable of dissolving all traces of exhaustion from weary bones. Soft shadows danced playfully across flat dirt avenues, illuminated faintly by filtering sunlight. As twilight approaches, a deeply hypnotic atmosphere settles heavily over these sprawling agricultural gardens. Colors of dusk paint the pale sky with brilliant shades of amber, melting into deep violet. Workers set aside their heavy tools to enjoy a well-deserved period of rest. They gather closely near small hearth fires built safely outside wooden groves. Sweet aromas of roasted grain mingle perfectly with the earthy perfume of river silt. A calming breeze sweeps down from northern mountains, rustling those broad canopy leaves. Mothers sing reverent melodies, praising the god Pabalsag for his endless generosity. Their sons and daughters close their heavy eyes, knowing they are completely safe within these protective forests. Dreaming minds drift effortlessly upon a slow and steady current of suspended tranquility. Bubbling fresh water rising from the Apsu sings a continuous song of peace throughout their sleeping neighborhoods. But even this incredible paradise was subject to the endless turning of the wheel of life, because while these citizens rest securely in their densely shaded sanctuary, an invisible tide is already preparing to shift yet again. With their bellies fully filled, a sort of awakening began to take hold, one which allowed the human spirit to begin focusing on the deeper mysteries of life. They watched as winding irrigation grids mirrored the inherent geometry of drifting constellations, scattered across the dark night sky. A burning desire to better understand the greater workings of the world around them gathers momentum high above those peaceful treetops, whispering of a great new destiny waiting just beyond their known borders. A destiny that will push humanity out from the shadows to step forward into a bright age of unimaginable ambition, where they would find an entirely different kind of awakening, one that provided more than mere nourishment of flesh and bone, but instead would feed their insatiable curiosity. Every step of this lost civilization follows a radiant path that leads directly into the first light of a golden dawn. Their wandering souls would inevitably be drawn towards the absolute brilliance of pure solar fire waiting just over the horizon, within the blinding domain of the glorious sun god. Under his devoted watch lies the fourth primeval capital, known as Sippar. Its immense urban network stood as an unparalleled epicenter of growth, a massive metropolis of absolute duality. The rushing branches of a mighty Euphrates river physically split this sprawling city right through its core. Here, deep winding waterways provided essential transport for booming eastern trade routes, and heavy wooden boats loaded with precious cargo traveled constantly along its vital currents. Such a long journey upstream beautifully mirrored a profound spiritual awakening for early humanity. They had left behind the dark shadows of the southern swamps to enter a bright domain. Supreme deities bestowed this glorious new territory directly upon a gallant celestial judge. Ancient clay texts refer to him as Utu or Shamash, depending on the era. He was a radiant sun god whose blinding light purified every single corner of those Mesopotamian plains. His fierce golden warmth banished the dark shadows of chaos to expose all hidden truths. A predictable certainty characterized his daily journey across our vast blue sky, providing a deep sense of security for vulnerable mortal populations. The quiet aquatic magic of the earliest sages gave way to the steady hum of urban industry, a sweeping transformation that echoed even more loudly than the great copper forges of Bad-Tibira. Its resonance fell across wide avenues driven entirely by relentless exposing rays of solar fire. And under the strict command of King Enlil, dedicated laborers harnessed its intense heat, baking millions of heavy mud bricks to build their ambitious new reality. The organic reed settlements that had marked their nomadic past were entirely replaced by a highly organized geometric grid. Towering clay walls rose sharply from the dusty plains to forever change our historical landscape, to physically bridge the unimaginable gap between terrestrial soil and the celestial realm above required massive artificial mountains. Organized builders constructed towering ziggurats through an impossible coordination of human effort. Millions of hard-baked bricks were placed in perfect alignment with the cardinal directions and the divine wisdom of the gods' design. These monumental structures reached desperately upward toward the blinding light of their solar deity. Crowning the very center of this sprawling metropolis sat a magnificent temple complex dedicated entirely to him. Ancient priests affectionately called this soaring sanctuary the Ebaba Temple, or Shining House. Its carefully structured stepped brick facades were beautifully terraced with hanging trees and vibrant green plants. Such lush rooftop gardens offered a nostalgic echo, recalling their shaded past in Larak and Eridu. A blinding shimmer reflected off the warm, sun-baked clay walls, radiating profound holy energy across Sippar. Advancements made by previous generations had been staggering enough as it was already. But here, within this city of solar fire, we see a truly unprecedented growth of scientific understanding. Early engineers had fully mastered complex canal networks, building massive levees and deep canals. Drought-resistant palms were planted strategically to help stabilize an arid environment, while providing shade from the blistering Mesopotamian heat. Its earliest storehouses served as vital transit hubs for timber flowing continuously from the distant Persian Gulf. Precious stones and heavy copper ores were meticulously catalogued within cool rooms, and skilled artisans pressed complex engravings into cylinder seals used to mark ownership on personal property and verify important legal contracts. But these intricate stone seals did more than just legitimize legal matters. They were carved from highly durable materials like hematite, lapis lazuli, and marble, ensuring that they would capture the essence of their culture for eons to come. And when a seal was rolled into wet clay, it left behind depictions of their owner's status through elaborate carvings representing mythological scenes, deities, and spiritual beliefs alongside their everyday lives, capturing the lost bloodlines of a forgotten time. Just think of the secrets still hidden within these ancient reliefs. Thousands of these seals have been recovered over the decades, and for every one we have found, thousands more are estimated to remain buried in the sands. Every delicate image preserves only a small fragment of the hidden magic ingrained so deeply into their society. The early scholars working diligently inside those high temple walls also pioneered major advancements in economics and the practice of civil law. The thick scent of burning cedar oils filled these sacred spaces, where brilliant minds calculated the inner workings of our cosmos. Their dedicated focus brought jaw-dropping scientific anomalies to light, to be recorded and catalogued amongst rows and rows of earthen tablets. One such relic is known today as the Ammisaduqa Venus Tablets. It serves as the 63rd tablet of an astrological compendium contained within the Enuma Anu Elish. This stunning document tracked the 584-day cycle of Venus with absolute precision. Similarly, they mapped the long-term orbits for Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn across many generations to decode the hidden messages from above. Ancient priests even identified the highly complex Saros eclipse cycle, spanning 18 years, a discovery they made long before the tools of modern astronomy even existed. So how did they do it? Such a vast wealth of wisdom obtained in the span of a single empire presents a mesmerizing puzzle. But the fragmented records of our past do not describe any sort of slow evolutionary processes. They claim it came suddenly and directly, as a divine gift from the Anunnaki Gods themselves. They recognized that mankind had outgrown simple means of survival and were now fully ready to pursue an entirely different kind of enlightenment. This profound transition would soon summon the reign of a new, legendary sovereign, uniquely capable of translating our cosmos. It is said that the supreme creators chose to bestow this incredible intellect upon the 7th antediluvian king of ancient Sumer, the king of the city of Sippar. He would guide his people closer to the hidden mechanics of the divine realm than any ruler before him, holding a unique destiny as he prepared to pierce the invisible veil separating our finite earth from the infinite heavenly realm. High above those towering temple platforms, a breathtaking height of pre-flood intellectual achievement would finally be realized. Ancient records from the royal libraries of Nineveh speak of a legendary sovereign named King Enlil, whose majestic rule spanned an incredible 21,000 years. He became known throughout antiquity as the master of deep mysteries and the father of divinity. This momentous leap in mortal understanding was aided by his wise sage, an extraordinary aquatic counselor named Utu-Absu. Together they would shatter the heavy boundaries of their earthly existence, becoming the only primeval figures to physically ascend into the realm of the gods. The 7th sage tore open that invisible cosmic veil, preparing a glowing path to bring his mortal king directly before the blinding presence of the Anunnaki within the great assembly hall of the gods. Standing at this newly exposed threshold, a humble earthly sovereign stepped softly into the radiant domain of Utu. This profound introduction permanently bridged an unimaginable divide, bringing human royalty face to face with supreme celestial intelligence. Within such a brilliant sanctuary of golden light, Enlil received the ultimate guarded secrets of the universe, held previously only by the divine creators themselves. He was instructed on the holy arts of cosmic divination, unlocking a mesmerizing practice known to early scholars as lekinomancy. Pure sacred water was drawn from deep subterranean springs, left to rest undisturbed within dark cedar bowls. A heavily sweet fragrance filled those quiet rooms with a deeply soothing aroma, grounding wandering thoughts to a precise focal point. Slowly, a single drop of precious oil was poured upon its glassy surface, initiating a mesmerizing observation of intricate liquid patterns. Swirling iridescent ribbons expanded gracefully across the water's surface, reflecting like mirror, forming intricate shapes of vibrating light. Each gentle ripple carried a specific meaning, revealing the hidden truths about everything from earthly fates to impending harvest cycles. In this practice of ancient divination, a simple domestic vessel became a living translation of the universal design, reflecting an entire cosmos within its slowly shifting colors. When this visionary ruler brought these celestial secrets back to his people, an elite secret guild of Mesopotamian seers was born. These esoteric methods required a deeply mystical atmosphere, far removed from the heavy hum of urban expansion. Seeking perfect stillness within shadowed temple chambers, dedicated priests prepared to peer directly into the intricately woven threads of fate. This highly exclusive order of devoted scholars became known as a powerful Bārû priesthood. Through these teachings, they held the profound wisdom to interpret planetary rotations and trace the delicate threads of destiny through those expanding iridescent ribbons. These dedicated initiates surrendered their personal ambitions to serve a higher celestial calling, studying each omen with an unwavering patience. They observed how the spreading oil perfectly mirrored the subtle vibrations of the universal resonances which pulsed around them, and it was this immense dedication that transformed their sprawling city into a flawless instrument of cosmic translation, operating in perfect synchronization with the divine will. Vibrant hues danced along shifting edges of water and oil, whispering silent prophecies to those who were trained to understand their secret motions. This hypnotic practice demanded absolute focus, drawing every quiet seer into a deep meditative trance. Soft lamplight caught those delicate reflections, projecting an ethereal glow onto smooth clay walls. Priests leaned closely over those fragrant wooden vessels, merging their minds entirely with the fluid canvas unfolding below. They watched carefully as drops of pure essence spread outward in a perfect circle, catching the pale reflection of emerging stars. Every subtle shift in its boundary was meticulously recorded, documenting a silent conversation between mortal inquiry and divine response. This direct exchange of knowledge lifted human awareness far beyond their humble beginnings, granting them a powerful tool to navigate an unpredictable world. An entire population could now anticipate seasonal changes, planetary cycles, and implement intricate mathematics with absolute certainty. Their lives moved forward with a calm and graceful momentum. As twilight settled over a sun-baked metropolis, citizens slept securely beneath the watchful gaze of these silent diviners. A deeply mystical atmosphere wrapped their winding streets in a comforting embrace. Peaceful slumber washed away the exhaustion of daily chores, wrapping their minds in a state of suspended tranquility. Little did they know at the time that this profound leap in human awareness would lead them to expand dangerously close to the untouchable boundaries of the elder gods, disturbing the delicate balance between their domains. The deafening clamor of growing industry was slowly rising, preparing to awaken a devastating cosmic shift. The seemingly unbreakable bond between these ancient stargazers and their immortal guardians was soon overshadowed by a gathering storm of mortal ambition, stretching far beyond the quiet courtyards of Sippar. Their massive population surged outward across the flat green valleys to establish the fifth and final antediluvian capital, known to early scribes as Shuru-Pak. This increasingly claustrophobic metropolis was dedicated to a nurturing goddess of grain named Sud. Towering earthen silos cast long shadows over an incredibly congested network of choked water canals. The thick foliage of green reeds pressed heavily against winding mud-brick streets, leaving very little room for quiet contemplation beneath those endless stepped ziggurats. It was a sprawling terrestrial engine running dangerously close to its absolute limit, vibrating continuously with a restless human energy. Countless thousands of modest dwellings spilled outward from the protective embrace of a central temple, completely consuming the once open grasslands. The natural rhythms of the earth had been stretched to a terrifying extreme. Such unrestrained ambition fueled a relentless push for greater domestic production, replacing the peaceful melodies of early shepherds with an overwhelming roar. Standing at the center of this overheating world was the ruler Ubahara-Tutu, the last antediluvian king to govern before the great flood of Sumerian law. Beside him stood his pious son, a gentle prince known as Zuisudra. Together they attempted to manage an overwhelmingly crowded domain, struggling to maintain order across a rapidly expanding human footprint. This booming roar of constant industry echoed fiercely from crowded markets, rising high into the once serene open sky. This chaotic noise had a name. It was known in the ancient tongue as Rigmu, a deafening clamor of progress that completely shattered the pristine balance of the early earth. Such relentless vibrations pierced the heavenly sanctuaries, permanently disrupting the quiet slumber of one of the highest gods in the Anunnaki pantheon, Enlil. Exhausted by this ceaseless terrestrial noise, the elder deities prepared to release a sweeping correction, to silence the overburdened landscape forever. He vowed the other gods to secrecy, but the wise water god Enki harbored a deep compassion for his mortal creations, refusing to let their spectacular primeval accomplishments be entirely washed away. He devised a desperate strategy, initiating a hidden countdown to preserve the brilliant spark of early civilization. In direct violation of his brother's command, he came to the young prince late in the night, shrouded in the long shadows cast by the moonlight. Whispering through a reed wall in a veil of secrecy, the wise water god warned Zuisudra of the coming storm. Ancient traditions passed down by later historians reveal a frantic effort to gather every single clay ledger detailing the advanced sciences of the old world. Dedicated priests raced against time to systematically transport these invaluable records back to the sun god sanctuary of Sippar, seeking to bury them deeply within the sun-kissed earth. The light of his cosmic justice would ensure it would remain protected until the waters receded. They sealed a massive wealth of cosmic mathematics securely underground, ensuring that the brilliant architecture of the Holy May could withstand a global apocalypse. These sealed earthen vaults contained the very essence of human progress, holding intricate star maps alongside detailed agricultural equations. It was a breathtaking library of celestial knowledge from the sweet freshwater abyss below to the heavenly realm above. By burying this divine source code within the soil, they returned the magic to its primordial origins, trusting the dark soil to protect their legacy. While those weary scholars hid their fragile history in the shadows, Prince Zuisudra embarked upon a monumental undertaking of his own. Following the instructions of Enki, he gathered a group of men to help collect sturdy cedar timber and construct a massive circular ark capable of riding out the coming tempest. This highly specialized vessel was designed for survival, safely carrying the vital elements of all biology through an encroaching reset which threatened to wipe them from the face of the earth. Meanwhile, a magnificent collection of moral guidance was handed down to serve as a definitive pre-apocalyptic time capsule, known today as the Instructions of Shu-Rupak. This revered text represented a literal transcript of that buried wisdom, holding the essential rulebook for governing a peaceful human civilization. The weary king passed these practical lessons of societal administration directly into the careful hands of his devoted son. Zuisudra absorbed every spoken syllable with an unwavering patience, allowing his mind to become a living vessel for this celestial logic. In keeping these flawless parameters, the young prince ensured that the profound intellect of Sippar would be properly implemented, to rebuild their way of life. Carrying the immense weight of this cosmic destiny, this pious prince stood as a lonely bridge between a fading age of magic and an unknown future, waiting just across the dark sea waters. He understood that his own survival meant nothing without the ability to reignite the flames of an enlightened society. It anchored his wandering spirit to the enlightened spark of his ancestors, providing a steady compass for the perilous journey ahead. A quiet sense of urgency filled those dusky rooms of the ancient libraries. The tactile scratching of slender reed styluses echoed softly against damp clay, racing frantically against a rapidly darkening sky. Every single wedge pressed into the mud served as a desperate anchor of hope, holding tight to a fading era. Mortal hands worked with a beautiful determination, knowing their towering palaces were merely temporary vessels for a much older truth. They surrendered their personal ambitions to become the anonymous guardians of human memory, securing an unbroken tether to the distant heavens, no matter how thin. It was a desperate act of preservation that would lay a pristine foundation for all generations yet to come. As the hours waned, the cool evening winds sweeping across the delta began to carry the sharp, metallic scent of an approaching deluge. The rhythmic hum of the great metropolis slowly yielded to an eerie, suffocating stillness. Exhausted caretakers paused their frantic work to gaze upward, watching as thick layers of dark clouds completely blotted out the comforting light of the stars. These heavy clouds continued to gather ominously over the flat green valleys, bringing a profound silence to the once vibrant plains. A heavy darkness began to blanket the land, the kind of darkness that swallows the radiant light of the fading sun, preparing to gracefully close a monumental chapter of primeval resilience. The old world was standing at the absolute precipice of a terrifying twilight, waiting silently for the first drops of rain to fall. When the sweeping flood waters finally arrived to wash across the Mesopotamian valleys, this immense deluge was meant to act as a profound structural reset. Its purpose sought to restore a primordial quiet to the overburdened earth, washing away countless centuries of deafening human progress. And no matter how incredible it may sound, endless modern excavations have since uncovered a distinct physical layer of pure river clay, indicating a massive cataclysm really did sweep over those ancient foundations. Such a thick band of clean sediment proves that a sudden halt interrupted the early timeline. And if one looks to the lore in search for accounts of what this event was like, its rich lines of cuneiform text paints a vivid picture. Churning ocean waves dissolved towering monument walls into shapeless piles of rubble, forcing our resilient ancestors to face a terrifying new reality. A relentless downpour of heavy rain from a raging sky merged seamlessly with subterranean springs bursting upward from the deep abyss, and the fierce waves from the salty oceans. Carefully measured agricultural trenches and fertile green pastures were instantly swallowed by an endless expanse of dark, churning currents. Foliage was uprooted in a single rush of crushing forces. Meanwhile, Prince Zuisudra rocked endlessly in his circular vessel, carrying every delicate spark of life needed to restore the world. Those heavy waves battered its bitumen-sealed walls relentlessly, throwing them back and forth. And while our world sank into darkness, surviving artifacts detailing the epic of Erra and Isham reveal a profound secret regarding what happened to the original 7 sages, while the floodwaters ravaged the surface. An incredible act of divine betrayal unfolded deep below these raging tides, offering an explanation as to why those brilliant aquatic advisors never returned to our sandy shores. They had been instructed to retreat into the Apsu for their safety, but once they had, a volatile war god named Erra took advantage of the devastating global chaos, trapping the original Apkallu counselors within the deepest chasms of their home in the freshwater abyss, banishing them forever. Their sublime wisdom had allowed early humanity to breach untouchable divine boundaries, pushing past sacred lines that were not meant to be crossed. By sealing the heavy gates of their home behind them, this deity permanently severed the direct stream of celestial intellect from the abyss. Our terrestrial Earth lost its most pristine teachers in one single moment, leaving future generations to forge an entirely new path, utilizing only the knowledge they left behind. Eventually, those ravenous storm clouds exhausted their dark fury, allowing pale sunlight to pierce through thick layers of grey mist. A devastating global ocean slowly began to recede, leaving behind a heavily altered landscape covered completely in suffocating mud. Shivering survivors stepped cautiously from their sealed wooden vessel, gazing out over flat horizons devoid of features where great primeval cities had once proudly stood. Mankind may have lost their celestial counselors without warning, leaving early human populations to chart an uncertain course through a devastated landscape. But despite this loss, the surviving human populations still possessed the incredibly resilient spirit of their ancestors, one that refused to be easily extinguished. They slowly recovered, step by painstaking step, rebuilding a shattered society, one sun-baked brick at a time. Weary travelers journeyed methodically back toward the ruined foundations of Sippar, seeking to unearth the carefully preserved knowledge of the Holy May. Recovering these earthen instructions provided a flawless map for restoring their complex terrestrial infrastructures across a now barren world, armed with this resurrected magic. Mankind soon began to raise sprawling metropolises yet again, this time over the flooded plains of ancient Kish. From there, they would spread even further, founding a magnificent stronghold enclosed by towering high walls. It was known to history as Uruk, rising beautifully into the azure blue sky, standing as an unbreakable testament to mortal endurance through the darkest of times. To further guide humanity through this challenging transitional epoch, the heavens provided a completely new generation of protective spirits. These post-flood counselors were not the same as the original fish-cloaked masters who had risen peacefully from the abyss. Instead, they took a completely different visual form, arriving as majestic, eagle-headed warriors with massive feathered wings. These striking avian guardians cast long shadows across the muddy riverbanks, bringing a fierce energy to the recovering plains. Archaic records reveal these new emissaries were a complex hybrid of the divine Apkallu lineage, blended with mortal descent. Their diluted celestial blood infused them with a rebellious human essence, carrying a mischievous nature that was every bit as insatiable as our own. Even so, these fierce avian guardians utilized their protective magic to ward off unseen dangers lurking just beyond their newly fortified city walls. Their presence offered a deeply reassuring comfort to weary workers, instilling a renewed sense of purpose across the barren mudflats. But these strange new guardians weren't the only drastic shift witnessed between the antediluvian and post-flood empires. Royal chronicles show a sudden leap from the impossible lengths of ancient reigns to drastically reduced timelines for all who came after. Sovereigns would no longer maintain the lengthy time spans of their majestic predecessors. Instead, we find human leaders with much shorter, far more plausible lifespans. This unmistakable alteration in biological endurance forever changed how society viewed their royal leadership. Future monarchs were no longer revered as almost supernatural beings who were chosen by the gods themselves. Rather, they would become dedicated shepherds, guiding their fragile flocks through a new era. Yet even with shorter reigns, the ultimate triumphs of their lost lineage would echo throughout eternity. Once awe had settled, the Anunnaki creators watched closely from their luminous celestial shrines, looking down upon the exhausted flood hero, Zuisudra. They recognized his absolute purity during such terrible hardship, observing how his sheer faith in Enki's words had successfully protected the essential seed of all living things. To honor such unparalleled dedication, those high deities decided to bestow a reward that was unprecedented in mortal history. The High Assembly officially elevated this devoted savior to immortal status, permanently lifting the heavy burden of mortality from his weary shoulders. And once his ascension into the godly realm was complete, radiant magic enveloped his soul. He was immediately translated to a sacred land resting at an absolute edge of their known world, a location known as Dilmun. Archaic texts paint a breathtaking picture of this divine realm, describing it as a purely pristine Mesopotamian version of Eden. It served as a glorious paradise drenched in sunlight, where daylight always rises, completely free from sickness or decay. Sweet freshwater springs bubbled up through the fertile soil to nurture thick meadows, creating a lush oasis completely untouched by passing time. Within this vibrant sanctuary, there was absolutely no sorrow, nor any concept of mortality. The sacred essence of a 241,000-year progression did not simply dissolve into the dark floodwaters. It was carried into an eternal horizon by the heroic efforts of one single man, ensuring our oldest memories would survive. This brilliant spark of primeval culture remains preserved forever in quiet whispers etched into earthen remnants of our collective history. As shadows lengthen across these recovering valleys, a soothing atmosphere begins to gently weave its way through newly built avenues. The patient architects of our earliest reality had established a flawless foundation of order, one that continues to hum in the remnants of our oldest cities. Those carefully preserved archives act as a steady guiding compass for the wandering human spirit, providing unwavering light through the darkest hours. Our grand journey through the primeval cities and ancient kings of the antediluvian era now gently softens in the brilliance of the moon, yielding its vibrant energy to a deeply comforting blanket. We step softly away from those towering temples of early antiquity, allowing our wandering thoughts to settle peacefully upon a tranquil riverbank. Just as those mighty waters of the Euphrates River flow endlessly onward, we float effortlessly along the shifting currents of distant times. They cradle us along our journey under the patient watch of 1,000 distant stars, glowing like soft embers in the calm of night, carrying our peaceful spirits toward a pristine horizon of boundless peace. Smooth mud brick walls slowly release their stored warmth into a cool and fragrant evening breeze. A soothing ambient temperature wraps the sleeping world in an eternal protective embrace. Sweet aromas of blooming desert flowers mingle with a damp, earthy scent of river silt, creating an intoxicating perfume that lulls every living creature into a restorative trance. Beneath the rich and fertile soil, an immense treasure of ancient wisdom rests completely secure within the earth. Those brilliant celestial blueprints passed down by aquatic sages sleep soundly in those depths, insulated entirely from the shifting currents of history. And their wisdom remains perfectly protected by benevolent hands, ensuring that their magnificent spark of culture will endure for all eternity. A continuous, unbroken line of history stretches backward into the misty dawn of our very first primeval settlements. We rest securely as peaceful witnesses to this glorious progression of the ages, feeling a profound connection to those earliest stargazers who once walked these exact same shores. Their quiet whispers echo softly through a rustling canopy of dense green reeds, offering a steady reassurance that our universe operates in absolute harmony. A profound sensation of warmth radiates downward from those highest celestial shrines, soothing every resting limb with a graceful, compassionate energy. That steady heartbeat of one of the greatest civilizations known to mankind softens into a mesmerizing rhythm, mirroring the slow lapping of water against the muddy banks. Our shared memory becomes a timeless, floating vessel, carrying us safely through a vast expanse of undisturbed space. Every slow breath we take synchronizes flawlessly with the majestic turning of planetary spheres high overhead. We surrender our resting consciousness to a supportive, gentle presence that requires nothing more than a simple willingness to relax. A serene sense of tranquility washes away every lingering trace of tension, drawing us deeper into a sanctuary of dreams. Luminous constellations trace their predictable pathways across an expansive sky, bathing the silent delta in a pale silver glow. This deeply ingrained cosmic resonance provides unwavering comfort, proving that the delicate balance of life is eternally maintained. Silent shadows stretch lazily across empty courtyards, where the sounds of daytime markets have gracefully dissolved into stillness. We are completely insulated within this flawlessly managed earthly garden, shielded by the enduring protection of the ancients. The tangible boundaries of our surroundings melt away, leaving only the pure essence of serene starlight. A deeply restorative quiet blankets those ancient Mesopotamian plains, as our consciousness dissolves seamlessly into an infinite cosmic ocean, cradled forever by the compassionate magic of early creation. We rest now within these most comforting shadows of antiquity, floating forever upon a serene, majestic tide of primeval memory. Because this vast tapestry of ancient history will never end with the drowning of a single epoch, nor does it dissolve beneath the weight of passing millennia. Instead, the resilient legacy of those earliest stargazers has quietly transformed, evolving into an invisible foundational current that flows beneath the surface of our current reality. Every structured hour we count, every geometric boundary we draw across our sweeping fields, and every silent monument we raise toward the dark canopy overhead serves as a direct continuation of their brilliant design. We are not separate from the distant past. We are its living canvas, carrying the permanent impressions of that celestial order forward into the unwritten chapters of our own future. As the cool evening air gently sweeps across quiet landscapes, the space between the ancient world and our present moment gracefully falls away. The thousands of lifetimes that have risen and fallen since the first mud brick was cured are reduced to a single continuous breath within the grand cycle of the cosmos. The deeply grounding resonance of those primeval planes remains entirely accessible, lingering just at the edge of our awareness, like a comforting and protective embrace that shields the mind from the fast pace of day. We rest securely now, knowing that the structural beauty of the universe remains perfectly balanced, safely anchored by the enduring preservation of our collective memory. Let your wandering spirit fully surrender to the comforting stillness of this timeless sanctuary. Allow your consciousness to gently sink into the infinitely peaceful oceans of the past. As the silver starlight continues its eternally patient vigil over the earth, allow yourself to drift effortlessly along the flowing tides of antiquity. Settle deeply into the restorative shadows of our origins, where we may breathe in the quiet harmony of the night and fade softly into an undisturbed slumber.